Okay, let's discuss writer-director Brandon Cronenberg's latest film, Infinity Pool. Now, as you probably already know, Brandon Cronenberg is David Cronenberg's son. And I like this film a lot more than I liked his dad's film from last year, Crimes of the Future. That was more cerebral and tougher to get through. I think this one is a little easier to get through, but he follows in his father's footsteps with the same genre of body erotica, sci-fi horror. That's what this film, that's the genre of this film. So hopefully you've seen it, you've seen this film because it will contain spoilers. I want to set the mood. So, Alexander Skarsgård plays James, this unsuccessful novelist who 6 years ago sold a book that didn't do any business. And his life is being funded by his wife, who is the daughter of a book publishing magnate. This book publisher published as a favor, really, James' book, his novel, because he's not a good writer. And for the last 6 years, he has had writer's block. So he and his wife take this getaway to this remote, very exclusive retreat in Eastern Europe to decompress and so that he can get his mojo back because he hasn't been able to write in 6 years. There, in in the beginning, he and his wife are very disconnected, and that's a clue to the ending. They're very disconnected. There really doesn't feel like there's any fire in their marriage, even though she's continuing to fund his life. He's married rich. And so, in the beginning of the film, we don't see them, also important, we don't see them come to or fly into this resort. We just see them together at breakfast. They're very disconnected. And, his wife is really like over him. She goes to the beach. Well, he bumps into one of the vacationers, played by Mia Goth. Her name is Gabby. And Gabby is basically Annie Wilkes. She loves his book, his biggest fan. She says she's been waiting 6 years for the follow up and the whole bit. And she's very promiscuous and very, there's sort of some heat and chemistry between them. But at any rate, Gabby invites James and his wife to have dinner with her and her husband. And so they have dinner, and this dinner is very important too. There are clues to where it's going in the end. They have dinner. Her James's wife is very emasculating to him. I mean, she really just tosses it. Again, there is really no love connection. This is how I know he's a clone at some point in the film. But anyway, they don't have a love connection. She like emasculates him and says he married rich. She feels like she's a charitable organization. Gabby tries her best to make him feel a little bit better about, the situation he's in. At this point in the film, James really doesn't have it. He's very cold and icy. He really has no feelings, really. Anyway, so Gabby and her husband invite them to an all-day beach getaway off of the reserve, off of the compound. They're not supposed to leave this compound because, it's dangerous outside the borders. Anyway, they sneak away, spend all day there. There's some erotic things that happen at the beach, which I won't even bore you with, but they're there all day. They're getting drunk. James is less drunk than the other ones and less tired, so he agrees to drive them back to the resort. It's at night. He ends up killing a pedestrian on the road, and Gabby comes up with the harebrained idea to leave the pedestrian there because she fears that James will be, or that they all will be executed for this murder, because the laws in this country are a lot different than what they're used to. So anyway, they head back to the resort, leaving the pedestrian there. In the morning, though, the authorities come to collect James and his wife. to try them for the execution. The only caveat is that if they have the money, they can pay for a clone. And of course, James's wife doesn't have to at this point, because she snitches. Okay. But anyway, so but James has to stand trial, and so if he has enough money to pay for a clone, then he can have the clone executed in his stead. Okay, so he escapes justice, really. He hides his passport because he wants to send his wife on her way and stay here, because at this point he is attracted to Gabby, and wants to stay behind to see if he can score again. So he stays. They become a group now with other vacationers banding together, and they're they go on this binge of orgies and this sadistic behavior where they're getting away with murder and crimes, really, and watching themselves, witnessing the execution of their clones. Well, in that second act, the lines get very blurred. There's no edge, really. Infinity Pool. There's no edge of what's real and what's cloned. And so you get the sense that you don't know who is the clone and who isn't. Well, eventually, Gabby and the crew confessed that they were setting James up. They were planning to, have him executed, have him cloned and executed in the hope that they planned this whole thing, but he got himself in trouble all on his own. And so eventually, he realizes that he's been played and now he wants out. But he is a glutton for punishment. He loves this self-inflicted harm that he finds himself in. But he is now detached from the group and he has to escape Gabby's clutches. She has him under her thumb. She's threatening to kill him. But she also has in her possession one of his clones. I believe it's a clone. I believe it's James. James somehow gets away. She shoots him. He ends up in the home of the son of the pedestrian he killed. He has a nightmare. He escapes there and then ends up back in Gabby's clutches. And Gabby forces him to fight to the death of this clone. And they fight. He bludgeons him to death, and then she nurses him. That's also important because this is another clone. She's nursed the clone back and to give him real life, to give him a normal life. The next morning, they get on this bus. They're headed to the airport. They're going back to their normal lives, and they on the bus act like nothing has happened. Like they are immediately snap back. They immediately snap back into their normal lives to prepare themselves to get back home. But James is really in this like trance. He is disconnected from the crowd. He feels nothing. He seems like he's in deep thought, but he's the clone. So at the airport, Gabby's husband says it was nice to meet you. So it's clear that he didn't meet James before. This was their first encounter. This was not his and Gabby's first encounter. Gabby does in her own way, tells him bye, but you can tell that they have met before, that they have done this before. Anyway, so, he pretends as if he's going to get back to, not pretends, but he goes along as if he's going to get back to his life. But then the camera zooms in on his airline ticket, and his airline ticket has the date of September 29th, 2018. That's how I know that this is a clone. First of all, to confirm it, he was disconnected from his wife. His wife just has no connection to this clone, but she is funding his life because it was her husband. Funding, she says she's a charitable organization. She's funding his life. He is the only one who remains. He's even been put out of the airport because everyone's gone home. He's abandoned, sitting out in the rain. That's the final shot, sitting out in the rain, abandoned to himself, likely waiting for a family to arrive so that he can torture them, because he is attracted to this lifestyle and doesn't have the original consciousness that the original had, and or rather, he's waiting for next spring when Gabby and her husband will return. So this is a clone. James is a clone. That is my conclusion. Now, this film reminds me a lot of two films from 2022. One is The Forgiven, starring Jessica Chastain and Ray Fiennes, who they were a wealthy couple too, vacationing on the Mediterranean. Ray Fiennes' character runs over this young boy, this Muslim boy, the only son of this Muslim man who is poor, but he takes Ray Fiennes' character on this tour to show him, you know, what life he was leading and what he'll be missing, and tries to compel to Ray Fiennes' good nature that this was his only son and what he lost. But Ray Fiennes doesn't have a good nature. He has no remorse because he feels like poor people are replaceable. The Duel follows this terminally ill woman living a mundane life who decides to commission a clone to live out the rest of her days, but then finds out that she was misdiagnosed and that she does have a lot more life to live, but she's been witnessing her clone who has been living a better life than she has ever lived, and now she wants that life back, but she must duel the clone to death, and whoever went to the death, and whoever wins gets to live the rest of this life. So this film, Infinity Pool, in concept, just in concept, reminded me of those two films, but this one goes off the Richter. At any rate, the ending, James is a clone. He has been there since 2018 based on his ticket, because otherwise, why wouldn't he have a more recent ticket? Now you may be asking, okay, why would he and his wife go there if his ticket was from 2018? Well, we never see his wife and he arrive. We never see James and his wife arrive together. We only see them there already. So that leads me to believe that he had been there. He is the clone. He had been there, and she flew in to see what her money has been paying for. And she realizes that he's killed somebody, and that was the shock. She didn't realize how deep of a sadistic life this clone has been living. What do you think? Do you think that James is the clone or the original?